So guys, it's been a long time, but I'm back. Yeah, 5 महीने हो गए थे. There was no video, but from now onwards, I'll not stop making videos for you guys. Hello guys, this is Vikram Singh, pursuing MBBS from GRMC Gwalior. Now presenting the part 1 of the heart and disease section, that is the anatomy. So let's get started. So guys, I have posted my notes on my Instagram account, that is the Integrated Medicos. Do check it out. But now we will go for the part 1 of the heart and disease section, right? And first one is the anatomy. And we will discuss the pericardium, subsequently the sinuses, an external feature, and then the grooves, and subsequently the blood supply. That is the arterial supply and the venous drainage in the part 1. In the part 2, we will go for the physiology of the heart, and subsequently from part 3 onwards, we will discuss the heart diseases, right? So let's get started. So first one is the pericardium. That is basically the fibroserous sac in which the heart is invaginated, right? So that is basically made up of two structures, fibrous layer and the serous layer. And serous is divided into the outer parietal layer and inner visceral layer, right? And inside to this, we're just having our parietal layer and subsequently the visceral layer. And both these layers, the fibrous and the parietal layer, are fused with each other, right? And this layer, that is the visceral layer, is fused with the myocardium. And there's cavity in between, and that is basically the pericardial cavity filled with the minimal amounts of pericardial fluid, right? So that is what our basic structure. And what is the apex, right? So this is our heart, and surrounded by these layers, okay, and that is fibrous layer, outer one, fibrous layer, and this is our central tendon of diaphragm. And these two structures, I mean the basal layer of the fibrous layer and the central tendon of diaphragm, are derived from the same structure, and that is the septum transversum, and their nerve supply is phrenic nerve, right? And diaphragm as well as the fibrous layer are supplied by the phrenic nerve. And this is the apex of fibrous pericardium, and that is basically fused with the roots of the great vessels arrived from the heart, right? So this is what the fibrous layer, and subsequently we will reach up to the serous layer, right, made up of the outer parietal inner visceral layer. And parietal layer is supplied by the phrenic nerve, right, and which is pain sensitive, and that's why the visceral layer of pericardium is also supplied by the autonomic plexus, and this is pain insensitive. Now we will discuss the pericardial sinuses, and we have two in number, that is transverse sinus and oblique sinus, and that is basically the open-ended, okay, and that is opened from both the ends. And second one is the oblique sinus, that is blind-ended, and these are basically the major arteries such as the aorta and pulmonary. And this fibrous layer is fused with the roots of these great arteries, and that is oriented like this. And posteriorly we do have the SVC, superior vena cava, and that is draining at RA, right? And inferiorly we do have the left atria like this. Now there is the space, and this is the space called as the transverse sinus, which is opened at both these ends, right? So this is our transverse sinus, and posteriorly we do have SVC. Anteriorly we do have these great arteries. Inferiorly we do have left atrium, and superiorly we do have the parietal layer of pericardium. So this is transverse sinus, and significance is, since this transverse sinus is opened at both these ends, so we can pass our ligature here. So we can pass our ligature like this in order to tie these arteries upon the major surgeries of the heart, right? So this is the significance. And second one is the oblique sinus, and that is basically blind at one end. Now we will discuss the oblique sinus, right? And that is basically left atrium, the posterior wall of left atrium, in which 4 pulmonary veins are draining, right? And that is basically our fibrous layer, the pericardium, right? So what are the boundaries? Anteriorly we do have posterior wall of LA, and posteriorly we do have the fibrous layer, right? And on either side we do have the pulmonary veins, right, which are 4 in number, and superiorly we do have the reflection of visceral layer of pericardium, right? Visceral layer, the reflection, right? And these are what the oblique sinus. And now we will discuss the external feature of the heart. And we do have three borders. Okay, what are the borders? And that is basically our right border. This is right border from the superior vena cava, right, up to this is the inferior vena cava, right, and that is basically our right heart border. And this is the inferior border from the IVC up to the apex of heart, that is apex. And now subsequently we do have the right border, that is basically between the left auricle, that is left auricle, and that is our apex. So that is our left border, right border, inferior border, formed by, and left border is formed by left auricle and left ventricle, inferior border is formed by right ventricle, and right border is formed by right atria. Okay, these are the borders. And subsequently the surfaces, and we do have four surfaces. Inferior surface is formed by the 2/3 portion of left ventricle and 1/3 portion of right ventricle, right, and there is anterior surface or sternocostal surface formed by all the four structures, that these are left ventricle, right ventricle, and 2/3 is right ventricle and 1/3 is left ventricle. And apart from that we do have left auricle and right atria. These are what the anterior structure, anterior surface. And subsequently we do have the left surface formed by left ventricle majorly and some part of left auricle, and right surface formed by the right atria, right. And now the apex, and that is basically apex formed by left ventricle. And what is base? And base is formed by the posterior surfaces of both the atrias, 2/3 portion of left atria and 1/3 portion of right atria, and these two structures are forming the base of the heart. And now we will discuss the blood supply. First one is the arterial supply, and we do have two major arteries. First is right coronary and left coronary artery. Okay, so that is basically our aorta, right, that is posterior surface, anterior area. Okay, and these are the aortic sinuses, and two posterior aortic sinus and one anterior aortic sinus, right, and that is left side and that is basically right side, and that is giving our left coronary artery, and anterior sinus is giving the right coronary artery, and this right posterior sinus, aortic sinus, is giving non-coronary artery, and that is the aorta. And these are the aortic sinuses, two posterior, one anterior. Okay, these are the origin. And first we will discuss the right coronary artery, and this is our the right coronary artery, that is formed from the anterior aortic sinus and passed between the pulmonary trunk and right auricle, right, comes in front and lying in what? Lying in this groove. What is this groove? That is the right anterior coronary sulcus, and that is a sulcus, that is a groove in which this right coronary artery is present, right. So that is present like that. Okay, let's say this is the heart, right, and this is our coronary, right coronary artery, and that is giving marginal branch number one, and that is giving the branch two acid node, second one, and first one is the right conus artery. Okay, and that is forming anastomosis with the left conus artery coming from the circumflex branch of left coronary artery. Okay, so this is our left coronary artery divided in, so this is our left coronary artery, okay, dividing in two branches. First one is the LAD, left anterior descending branch or anterior interventricular branch, and subsequently second branch is our circumflex artery, okay, left circumflex artery. Okay, and left circumflex artery is giving another branch, that is left conus artery, forming anastomosis with the right conus artery, and both these artery are forming the annulus, and that is called as annulus of Vuissens, right. So annulus of Vuissens. And now we will discuss the branches. First one is the right marginal artery, and then the SA nodal artery. Third one is our right conus artery. So these are three arteries, right? And subsequently that goes behind okay, and gives a branch that is lying in the posterior interventricular groove, that is posterior interventricular artery. This posterior interventricular artery supplying the posterior third area of the septum and the AV node, right? So this is what the right coronary artery, and now we will discuss the left coronary artery, and we do have two branches: the left anterior descending branch, right, and second one is the left circumflex artery, right? So this is what our heart, okay, and that is our artery, coronary artery, dividing into two branches. Number one is the LAD, that is left anterior descending branch, running into the anterior interventricular groove, right? And second one is our circumflex artery, that is running into left anterior coronary sulcus, left anterior coronary sulcus, right? And that is our right anterior coronary sulcus, right? And that is curling behind, right? And anastomosing with right coronary artery, right? So this is what the point of anastomosis at the crux of the heart. And this circumflex artery is giving some branches such as left marginal artery, number one. Number two is left conus artery, okay, that is forming anastomosis with the right conus artery and forming the annulus of Poisson's, right? Branches that it can give the SA nodal artery, right? In 1/3 of the cases, it can deliver the SA nodal artery, and that is basically more commonly given by the right coronary artery, right? So this is what our SA nodal artery, third one, but chances are 1/3, right? So this is what the left coronary artery, and that is basically circumflex artery, right? And this is our LAD, left anterior descending branch or anterior interventricular artery, and that is giving a diagonal branch or the septal branch, that is supplying the left ventricle and the anterior to third area of septum. That is basically LAD, left anterior descending branch. And now we will discuss the coronary veins, right? Coronary veins. And most important vein is the great cardiac vein, right? And this is our heart, right? And this is our great cardiac vein. That is great cardiac vein, okay? And that is starting from anterior interventricular sulcus, right? And goes up, and present in left anterior coronary sulcus, and then continues as the coronary sinus behind, and that is forming coronary sinus. And this is our coronary sinus here, okay? And that is basically continuation of the great cardiac vein, and that is in the form of coronary sinus here. And coronary sinus, and that is basically coronary sinus, okay, the most important vein of the heart, that is draining into RA posteriorly, right? And that is LA, and that is present in left posterior coronary sulcus, right? So this is what the coronary sinus. And we do have two more veins. Number one is middle cardiac vein, and then the small cardiac vein or lesser cardiac vein, okay, and which is present in the posterior interventricular groove, okay? So it is like that, it is present like that. This is our middle cardiac vein, and that is draining into the coronary sinus here, okay? That is second vein, okay, draining into coronary sinus. And third vein is the lesser cardiac vein, and lesser cardiac vein starts from this point, okay, and that is basically this area, that is right anterior coronary sulcus, and goes behind in the right posterior coronary sulcus, turns behind, right, and then that drains into the coronary sinus there, and subsequently this coronary sinus is draining into the RA, and the whole blood of the heart comes into RA with it, right? And we do have the anterior cardiac veins, that is draining directly into RA, and we do have two more small veins. Number one is the oblique vein of LA, and then the posterior vein of LV, right? So these are what the oblique vein of LA and posterior vein of LV. And this is it with respect to the anatomy of the heart, number one. And second one is the blood supply of the heart, the arterial supply and the venous drainage. Okay, so this is it with respect to part 1, and thank you for watching. So guys, hit the like button for the sake of the integration, and don't forget to subscribe. Pressing the icon will give me some vibe. So guys, this is it with respect to the part 1 of the heart and disease section, that is the anatomy, and subsequently we will discuss the physiology of the heart. Right, so till then, keep integrating. Thank you.